My name is Peter Ogbemudia. I'm a GP. I work in West Yorkshire. I do mainly night shifts. Sometimes I do evening as well, which means 13-hour shift. I'm married with 3 children. My wife is a senior lecturer at Leeds Beckett University in Leeds. My children, my daughter is 19. She's preparing to go into medical school. The second one is in sixth form. I think the second year to the final year. I think it's year 12. And the third one is in year 8. And they're doing very well, to the glory of God. I grew up in Bender State. It's divided into 2 states now in Nigeria. It's called Edo State and Delta State. I grew up in a very chaotic family, polygamous family. My father married 3 wives. We had 5 children. My mother married 5 husbands and 8 children. So I can't remember much about my early childhood, just that I know that I briefly remember seeing my mom, but mainly I remember that I wasn't with my mom for a long time because they divorced, and I was with my father. Now my father was not obviously he wasn't educated. He was very satanic. He was a satanic Satan worshipper. He was into a lot of diabolical stuff, and he was an alcoholic. So when they divorced, he took us from my mom, but he couldn't look after us. So he ended up giving us out as house helps to various people. So my early childhood was that of living with people, just doing the chores and everything they wanted to do. To be house help in Nigeria means that because my parents couldn't take or my father couldn't take care of me, he has to give me to somebody who could at least feed me and clothe me. But in return, I had to do all the chores in the house, like whatever they want really, washing, fetching, going to get water, because most of the time there's no water. You have to go to the river or go to the tap far away, uh, going to the bush, just anything. Errand boy, basically. That's just what you did. Their main responsibility is just to provide you with a roof and maybe food. But sometimes they don't have to do that. There is no formal arrangement. There are times we go without eating. You can be beaten, and yeah, they can do anything to you really. You can go days without eating, beaten for any little mistake, and that was it. That's what it means. So you do whatever they want you to do. I remember staying with various families. One of the good things is that in primary school then they didn't have to pay for education. So most people went to school anyway. So we were allowed to go to school. But I went to school. They could pull me out of school. I remember going to so many primary schools. Some I went twice, went back and all that. So I can't remember how many years I spent in primary school. So we kept going from one family to another, from one family to because my father could just come, and if he feels that he wants to go and maybe somebody else has asked him for domestic help, he can just take us and go and give us to another person. So while we left it, there was a woman that really, really maltreated us. She was really mean to us. Somehow we knew that my father came from a village somewhere in that state. And so we decided to escape from that woman's place to go and live in the village. So the 3 of us, less than 12 years old, we started staying in this village, our father's village. We built our house with mud, firewood, wood, and we could just construct a hut basically and then lived in it. And that's it. But because we were very young, it wasn't easy to survive. So we fished, we farmed, we went hunting, and when it was difficult, we stole just to eat. We enter people's farm, ate, just stole their food, but mainly just to survive. We got caught. We got caught, and in the process, we found out my eldest brother's name was Lucky. Started showing having some medical problem. I didn't know at the time. Now that I'm a GP, I knew that it was epileptic. Because one day he started fitting, and we had to call the villagers because they couldn't do anything about it. There are a lot of idol priest or juju worshiper that tried some satanic stuff to cure him. They couldn't do that. Now they remember that my father was a very devout or strong idol worshiper. He was living in Benin at the time. And somehow they made arrangement to get my brother to him. And then they found him. And then he decided we all should come to live with him. It wasn't still well to do, but when we went to Benin, back to Benin from the village, we started again trying to survive because he wasn't working, he was just drinking. So we did car wash, everything, sold food stuff on the streets, washed cars, and all that. We tried to go to school because at that time education was mainly free. Uh, Eventually was able to finish primary school just somehow, and then I got a very passed good grade and to go to secondary school. In secondary school you have to pay, so that was where the problem began. My father couldn't afford it, so I decided to approach the secondary school there and ask how much it was to the tuition fee. They told me what it was 50 naira or 30 naira Nigerian money then. So I decided to farm. I did like a laborers. People will give me their farm land. I'll price it, and very large expanse of land, acres of land for me to cut to pay me, and I did that for many weeks without going to school, trying to save the money. Then my father suddenly became ill, and well, I don't know what it was, but he died in my arm. I think I was about 12 or 13. So my uncles and aunties came from the cities to come and bury him. And obviously they didn't have money because they were all very poor. And the little money I saved for my school, they took the money, used it in burial, and said they were going to decide who would train me. So I didn't need the money. But after the burial, almost only one of them left really. They went back to the city, promising to come back and discuss who I will stay with and my education. So I realized that they have just gone, and I was there with my auntie, and I had to make a decision what to do. So again, I decided, well, I will just farm again and fish and just do laborers work, anything I could get just to get the money. So normally I do that, maybe school times, maybe about how many weeks, maybe 13 weeks. By the 10th week before exam, I'll go to school. I have enough money to pay my tuition fee. I'll tell the boss again, and then I'll take all the notes that all the lectures they've had. I'll just write and write and write, and then read before the exam. And I don't know, I suppose I was good. I passed. First time I passed, I did that. Second time again, I can't start the school year with them because I have to look for my tuition fee. And then I get the note again, I'll just copy it and then study, then pass. So the final what we call year 7 the first year of secondary school, they increased the tuition fee from 30 naira to 50 naira. So it was already very difficult for me to get 30 naira. So 50 naira was very difficult. So I tried. By the time it was approaching exam period, I didn't have the money. I had about 30 naira. Now, if I didn't go to do that exam, you will not be promoted to the other year. And I needed to be promoted to the following year. So I decided I was going to take the 30 naira, go to the school, and plead with the bursar that they should take this money. Let me do the final exam, because if I don't, I have to repeat the year. So they can keep the result, and then during the holiday, I will work the extra 20 naira, bring it to them, and they can give me my result. So, but before them, I heard that there were some people, young people that came to the school. We call them coppers. There are people that when they finish university, you serve the country for a year. They send you anywhere, mainly to school to teach. They came to the school, and they've been telling me about them. So the first day I got to school, a young lady came into the school in the class and said, if you have not paid your 2 naira for home economic lessons, stand up. So obviously I stood up because I didn't know I was just coming to school. So she started beating because then you flog people. Why have you not paid? They flog you with the cane. They were flogging everybody. So when she got to me, she said, why have you not paid? And I said, well, I don't know about any 2 naira. I've just come. This is my first day at school. And I added that beside, if I know about 2 naira, I can't even pay it because I don't have enough money to even pay my tuition fee. So he said, what do you mean you can't pay it? Don't you have a father? I said, I don't have a father. Don't you have a mother? I don't have a mother. Then I started crying. Then she stopped. And she was shocked. You don't have a father, you don't have a mother, because where we were living was, when we say village in Nigeria, it's actually village. No electricity, no light, water, and all those things. And just, it's like a jungle, really. So she couldn't believe it that a young person would be living there without parents. So she stopped and said, okay, can you come and see me in my class? And stop beating everybody. And the class was very happy about that. So I went to see her in her class. I heard her talking to another young man saying, can you imagine? He said he doesn't have parents in this place. So I walked in and said, sorry. I think she introduced herself, but I didn't even remember much about her. So what do you mean you don't have a father? I said, well, my father brought me to this village, but he died. And my uncles and auntie, they've left me. So, but I didn't want to miss out in education. So this is what I've been doing. And I, wow. So, but what about your mother? I said, well, I don't know about my mother because my mother left my father when we were very young. So don't your mother have other children? I said, yes, because I remember that my mother has some older children. My mother has 8 children. I'm the sixth of my mom. So my mom had other children. But many years ago, I remember there was a lady who kept pestering my dad to let us, myself and my elder brother, to go and know my mom's other children, because when they were together, this woman knew them. Then when they separated, this woman was still was in touch with both of them because she was more a friend to my dad, but she knew my mom and the other children. So the older children, they kept telling her when they see her, please tell their father to bring them to know us. So one day, this was before this, the woman succeeded in persuading my father to take me to know my brothers. So I saw 2 of my mom's children, the second born and the third born. Now they introduced themselves. One said it's Monday, one said it's Young. And they said that they were the second and third born my mom, and that they've been trying to find out where we lived. They just gave me the address and said we lived at number 10, Second Ogbemudia Street. I can't remember how many years this took place before this incident in secondary school. But when the lady asked me, don't you have, your mother have other sibling? I remember the address just like that. Just, I don't know, maybe I was too brilliant or not. I just remember the address and quoted it and said, yeah, I have an elder brother, Monday and Young. They live at number 10, Second Ogbemudia Street, Benin City. And she wrote it down. So I was like, why are you writing it down? I said, I'm going to look for them. I didn't know where we were, how far it was from where they were, Benin, but I said the address. She wrote it down. She now said, okay, give me the 30 naira. I didn't know whether to give it to her or not, but I somehow just gave it to her because she's a teacher and you have to obey the teacher. So I gave her the 30 naira and then she said, go back to the class. So I went back to the class. And next thing, the bursar came in and gave me a receipt for 50 naira, which is the full amount of tuition fee. So I wasn't sure. I think the lady paid it, but she never told me. But just so I stayed in class and did my exam. She was very close to me. She told me I should come to her house to eat, and anything I wanted I could go and eat. But obviously I couldn't go because it's a bit complicated. Because there has been some not vision of satanic utterances that they were trying to kill me next. And when there was something that happened, and my auntie went to an idol worshiper to seek divination, and it came up. My name came up, and they said they were going to kill me next. The witches and wizards said that. So when the lady asked me to come to her house to eat, even though I didn't have food to eat, I just couldn't eat because I thought maybe she was going to poison me or something. So I rather went hungry, trying to survive on my own. But I did the exam, and then one day in class, they came to call me that somebody's looking for you. The lady came to call me and said somebody's looking for you. I said, who? Say your brother, your mom's second child. I couldn't believe it. So he came and said, my name is Monday, and yeah, I'm in University of Benin. And the first thing he said, look, there is a God in heaven, and you will not be in this village for long. I just laughed. There's a God in heaven. It didn't make sense to me. And if there's a God in heaven, that has nothing to do with me. But he just said you won't be here for long. I didn't know how that was going to happen. So he said, do your exam, and then wrote the address for me and said, when you finish, find a way to get to the Benin and come and see us. Well, I did my exam, I passed. So in a way, I looked for how to go to where the address was and went to look for them. And I met them. I met my mother, other children. Apparently, my mother has moved on. What happened actually, my mom, being, I don't know what you call it, an idol worshiper, Satan worshiper, he had a covenant with Satan, according to when I was trying to find out from my brother, according to her. The agreement she had with Satan is that she can only give birth to 2 children, and then she has to leave that marriage. So that's how she ended up marrying 5 husbands. So she gave birth to 2 children. The first marriage she had to leave, even when I think one of them died. She can't give birth to a third one. So she has to marry a second man, give birth to 2. The second man she married is the father of Monday and Young, these 2. The first one is in Lagos. Now, their sister, she's one because she lost her sister, her twin brother. So Monday and Young, my mother had to leave there and then marry another man, gave birth to another 2, but they lost one. That's Queen. That's the 4th child, who's a woman. Then married my father, who is the 5th, and gave birth to Felice and myself. So it was my brother telling me the reason the divorce broke us, because after giving birth to me, she had to leave because of her agreement with Satan. And my father himself, being an idol worshiper, didn't think that that agreement will have any effect, that she should stay in the marriage. And she said, no, even though you are a juju priest and powerful, she was more afraid of what Satan would do to her. So she had to leave the marriage. So at that time, she was already married to another person. We didn't know where she was, but they know she had to leave the marriage. So that was how. Anyway, so my brother, they became Christian, even though they were from very satanic background. All of them were Christian, Monday Young, Queen. And they told me that my mother had a brother who is in another part of Nigeria. He used to be in US. He's an educationist. He's a principal in school. He likes education. So when Monday came to the village to see me, he apparently contacted him and told him, your sister has a son who is in the village and is in a bad situation, but this is his situation. So that one said, fine, during the holiday he will come and they should try to get me down so that he will see me. So I was in Benin and he came. He's my uncle. He came and I said, oh, I've heard about you. So you like school? I said, well, I don't have any other choice. You just have to go to school. I said, okay, so what will happen is this. You will not go to the village anymore. You will go with me to Ilorin. So I remember what the Monday said. He said, there is a God in heaven. You will not always be in the village. So it's a bit like, okay, did he just say that, or how did that happen? So I think somehow maybe that started playing something in me, that actually maybe there's a God, because now it was clear I wasn't going to stay in that village again, which is what Monday said. But before my uncle could take me to Ilorin, a messenger came from somewhere, and I heard them talking hush hush. Yeah, he said, and later they called me and said, do you know your mom? I said, well, I don't know my mom. I think I vaguely, when I was growing up. I said, okay, they've just sent a message from somewhere in another state. Apparently that's where she's already married to women, and she was very ill. And the person that came said, I think she's not going to make it. And they just wanted to make sure that we are aware. So my uncle and my grandma, they wanted to go and see her. But because I didn't know her, they felt that maybe they should take me along. That's what they were discussing, just to know how she was. So we all entered the car, and how many of us, we went to this place they gave them. When we got there, they said that was the house. I just jumped out of the car, didn't know who I was expecting, and passed somebody on the road, a very cachetic, rickety looking old woman. As I passed her, going to the house, she passed me. My mother and my grandma started crying. So I stopped. The person I passed stopped. And my grandma now says to call my mother's name. Say, my God, is that you? Say, yeah. So you have just passed your son. So actually the person I passed was my mom. So you have just passed your son. So she turned around and looked at her. I don't know what I was expecting, because I really didn't know her, but she was so emaciated. I think later I was asking my brother, Dr. Young, this third born. I think she's probably had TB or something. I don't know what she had, but she was so wasted. So she now said, which one is this? Is this Peter or Felice? So my grandma started crying. So you don't even recognize it. So that's how long it was anyway. Anyway, they took her in the car and said, we were going to take you. So the man that she was married and that again was another satanic worshiper, an idol worshiper. I know you can't take my wife. Look, she's very ill. We're going to take her. She already had 2 children. So he was already planning to leave that man too. So my uncle wanted to take the 2 children. So the man said, no, you can't take my children, 2 boys. So he took the last born, which is Samuel. We took that and left one for him because the other one didn't live. So we all went back to Benin. My uncle then decided to take me to Ilorin. So I went to Ilorin. So to continue my secondary school, which was great. So this was the first time of being in a flat, in a house where there's toilet and bathroom in the house. I grew up where the toilet is in the bush. There's no toilet, you just go in the bush and just do yourself. You take your bath outside. Just to, I was surprised to see that it's a house. You got toilet and bathroom and everything. But it wasn't all very welcoming because the wife, when my uncle left, didn't tell the wife he was going to bring me because my uncle didn't know he was going to bring me. But my uncle thought the wife would understand. So the wife wasn't happy at all. So she too maltreated me. She was always angry with me, giving me clothes to wash all their clothes, underwear, her children's clothes. But I wasn't bothered because I grew up in a village with a very worse, 10 times worse condition than that. I mean, I could eat and you could take the food away, but I was living in a house. It was just like living in a paradise. So whatever she threw at me was nothing. Fresh water, wash clothes, wash toilet. If I was in the toilet, she opened the toilet. She won't allow me to finish. I had to come out, clean my bonbon so she would use it. It was just, the children were not happy with her anyway. The children were like sorry about the way our mom, it's just because our dad didn't tell the mom that this. There was another girl there that was living there. That girl said that's not true because your mom brought me without telling your dad, and when your dad came, he just accepted me. But now your dad has brought the sister's son. Why couldn't your mother? When my uncle saw the way the wife was treating me, he decided to speak to his friend for me to if I could stay with him, and that man was very happy. He said, "Yeah, of course I can come, but if only I can teach his children." My uncle said, "Yeah, he will teach your children." So by that time, my uncle's wife was beginning to see that I was very hardworking and all that. And he obviously put me in school, in secondary school. So by then my uncle just said he's leaving the house. She was like, why? I said, well, he can't stay because the way it's not fair. She was like, no, 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 please let him stay. And uncle said, no, he's gonna go. So I went to live with a stranger, call him Baba Sunday. He has very young children. He gave me a room. He has this house, just many rooms. He gave me a room, feeding me, and all I was doing was teaching his children, primary school children. So that was the arrangement. I went to school. So yeah, so obviously I did put my head down, study very hard. In terms of my spiritual journey, when I came to Benin to stay with my brothers Monday, and they obviously go to church, and they invited me to church. That was the first time I went to church and heard about the Christian faith, and it didn't make a lot of sense to me, but I attended it in the church and preaching the messages about God and His love and sending His Son to die for us. But I didn't make any commitment. And then when I left Benin, I went to Ilorin to stay with my uncle. Despite the fact that my uncle's wife was kind of mean to me, she had this booklet because the 4 spiritual laws. She taught me all about it and things like that. And then I went to church with them. I actually gave my life to Christ before I went to live with Baba Sunday in church when sermon was preached in Baptist church. And so that's when I made a commitment, came out on the altar call and gave my life to Christ. Well, when I went to secondary school, there was a fellowship of Christian students, and they were like all newcomers, they would try to invite you to fellowship and all that. But I already given my life to Christ, I was just a young Christian. So they invited me to the fellowship. and started studying the Bible, reading, started getting a bit of understanding of, what God wants from me and what God is and who Christ was. And then the leadership of the church, the fellowship had to go because they were in final year, secondary school final year. And they prayed, they decided they wanted to give it to a leader. I was in probably year 3, which is like year 9 or so. And they prayed according to them, it was confirmed to them that I was to be the leader of the fellowship. So they asked me and they called me, they prayed for me and said I'll be the leader. And I remember them telling me, if you're a leader of the fellowship, there are 2 things. You need to read the Bible from the beginning to the end. And then you need to pray. That's just your job. Because it's a Catholic school, and in Lorraine was full of Muslims. We were not too many in the fellowship. So I was the president of the fellowship. I was the Bible study secretary. I was the prayer leader. Basically, I was doing everything. But we were able to gather ourselves from the youth together, and I led the fellowship until JS final year in secondary school. Because I was very good at maths, I was very, very good. I represented the school in maths. I used to go for quiz. I thought I would do engineering, so I just wanted to do something mathematical. But when I was trying to fill my form to get to uni, I had the leading in the spirit, because at this time as a Christian, I was already understanding my faith better, that I should check with my brother first and not just decide to be an engineer. Now, those days there was no telephone. You have to write letters and wait. So, and I've never really discussed anything like that. I've just been doing my own thing. So I knew that Dr. Young, he was in medical school. So anyway, I wrote him a letter and said, look, I'm going to apply to university and I want to do mathematics and something relating to maths. Is there computer or engineering? I got a letter back just before the deadline to apply that please don't apply to be an engineer. You need to apply to medicine. When you come to Benin, I'll apply to medicine in Benin. Then when you come, I will explain the reason. And I thought about it, prayed about it. I was a young Christian, and I felt that God said I should listen to him. So, because he was a Christian himself, but my own being it out, okay, that's fine. So, my friend and I that wanted to do engineering, they said, okay, that's fine. So, I applied for medicine. I finished secondary school 91. I finished in June, July. And because that year there were a lot of things crammed together, I was to do the entrance exam to uni in October. So I had to travel from Ilorin to Benin. There was no time to prepare, so I went and I sat the exam. Apparently, Dr. Young, he tutored people for the university entrance exam. So he checked what I did and the answers I made. So this is your answer. You must have done very well. Because they didn't know me, whether how good I was or not. But long and short is that I passed my exam and got into medical school. But I couldn't afford the accommodation on campus. So, and there was still no money. We were not very rich. We had to survive. So what we did was I taught physics and maths in secondary school on part-time. I did bakery work on the weekend. I would try to go to school during the week. And so I did that for a few years. And my mom's last born that we took when my mom was ill, he also supported me by selling bread and then helping with the money. We did some palm kernel business. We did everything just to get money to pay school fees and to survive. So the first year, second year, medical school, I was going to school from home. But the third year, when you do the first professional exam, that's usually very tough and you have to study very hard. So I decided I would go to school, squatted with some people, did everything, and passed. I didn't, by the grace of God, I didn't repeat any exam twice in medical school. So many people, more than half of the people we enter in the first year were sent off from medical school, because that's it in Nigeria. But I passed all my exams. So when I started living on campus, in the third, fourth year, I had to join a fellowship. I joined a Christian Christ Ambassador Student Outreach, which is a wing of Assemblies of God Church. Yeah. So I became, there I was the Bible study secretary for a few years. I was always Bible study secretary, even though they nominate me for other posts, but I ended up being Bible study secretary final year coordinator, counseling unit leader. So that's what I did, and then until I finished my medical school. So I finished university, and I passed all my medical exam. I must say that God helped me because there were times I didn't have money, and friends came in, relatives or friends provided money, and it was just so amazing. So there were, I could say, God's hand. I had TB that I didn't know about at the time. God healed me of it and all. Some major miracles in my life. So when I finished, and I did my uh, my what you call foundation year. Yeah, we call it housemanship. You and I did it in. They only pay much, but there was my wife now, who I already knew was my fiancée that I wanted to marry. When I was doing my housemanship, the little I was being paid, her father died suddenly, and she was stranded. She was in third year. The option was I had to not finish uni, so but I had to just sponsor her through school with the little money I was getting. So I was giving us part of the money to make sure she completed her education as well. So I did my 1 year of housemanship and went to do 1 year of youth corps to serve the country. So I came back to look for a job. I got a job. I didn't really get a job, so I was working in 3 different places, private hospitals, University of Benin Teaching Hospital. I was just waiting to get a permanent job, so I was doing locum, different things. And then obviously I got married to Joy, and yeah, so I was working 3 jobs. Sometimes I will not get home, just go maybe on a Monday, come back on a Wednesday, come from job to job. The job I wanted to get was the job with the University of Benin, but it's about politics. It's about who you know in Nigeria and how connected you are. And I'm just a nobody apart from God. So we did an interview, and I passed, but some people, children of lecturers and others, came and took the job, and I just remained there, and things were a bit difficult. So one day I was in the bus and I saw another senior doctor, who did an interview for a higher post with me. So she was talking to me, said, "Are you still working as a locum in the health center?" I said, "Yes." And so, "Why are they treating you like that? You've been working there for a few years now. You 4 of you run around the place. Why couldn't they just say, well, they said it's who no man, all those kind. I don't know anybody." So, well, that is very bad. They shouldn't treat people like that. Just because you are not from a well-to-do family doesn't mean that they should treat you like that. So you can't be doing 3 jobs. Each job you're not paying very well and all that. So as we were talking, an elderly man interrupted us and said, "My son, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but why don't you travel out of the country?" So we both stopped and looked at him and said, "Travel out? What do you mean? You can't travel out." I said, "Are you not a doctor?" I said, "Yes." "You can travel out." My son experienced the same thing, and he traveled out. He did his exam, traveled out. Again, as a Christian, because I know how God led me, I got it in my spirit that I needed to look into what this man was saying. So it's also okay, started making inquiry. How do you travel out as a doctor? And where can you go? So I started checking all the exams, found out that in UK you could do a particular exam. Actually, there was somebody that I helped some time ago who came to come and tell me about the UK exam, some other thing to do to come to UK. I wasn't interested because you needed to send your original certificate, and I didn't think if I send it and it get lost, then I won't have anything. But somehow, when this man made and I started inquiring, God started bringing me in contact with various people who knew about these friends that I trusted, that are also planning to travel out. So that's how, we started planning to do the exam, did the English exam. As I said, I started looking at ways to travel out and then still doing my job. Obviously, my wife, my young wife Joy, things were a bit tough because I was doing 3 jobs, were not really well paid, and there were a lot of things to contend with in Nigeria. No lights, no good road. It's just a lot. Even as a doctor, I was struggling. So I told her about the decision to travel out and things like that, and okay, she was happy about it because one of the most important things to Joy is comfort. she doesn't really, she's not really worried about money or anything, but she likes to be comfortable. And one of the things she hated most is not having light, electricity. She hated that part of the country where there's no light. Maybe because a lot of things you have to cook every day, you can't store anything in the fridge, and we're just frustrating to constantly live in the dark. So when I discussed the prospect of coming abroad, and obviously we heard about this lights, there's water, there's everything there, you were like, even if it's just the comfort, even if you are being paid the same thing, then at least we should do it because we can't just continue like this. So yeah, so she was in agreement. We prayed about it, and then started doing my exams. And yes, I did my English exam and the first part of the exam. And then the second part of the exam, everybody has to come to England to do it. And the second part is a practical part. You have to come to England to do it. So I was going to get a student like exam visa to do it, then go back. But somehow God led me to a group of my friends who were doing the same thing. But there was another kind of visa that was being issued at that time called HSMP, highly skilled migrant visa, which just gives you work permit for 5 years. You don't have to. So, and that's the one that my friend wanted me to send my certificate and all that, which I didn't want to do a few years back. So, but these my friends, they're Christians. We're all Christians in university, and I trust them so much. So they said they've done it. They sent their original certificate, assessed in England, sent back to them. They sent them the letter. They applied for visa, and they trusted the system. So I used that method, applied, and I got a reply that yes, you can go and apply for visa. So I applied for visa but I had the HSMP, so I could do my exam, but stay and work in this country because it grants you just the right to work. So I didn't want to bring joy, as at that time we already had 2 children at the time I was planning. So I didn't want to bring joy on the children because I wanted to be settled first. So the idea was to come do my exam, be settled, then bring joy and the children, Shalom and Gideon, and to come and join us. So when I came and got here, I had to look for a job. I got a job with T-Mobile, it's telecommunication. I was customer service advisor with T-Mobile. I did that for a year because you have to do the PLAB 2, be registered GMC before you can work as a doctor. But in the meantime, I had to do something. Some of my friends did care work, but I got customer service job. So I was doing that and actually thought even the money I was making doing that was kind of more than what I was making as a doctor, and I was living a bit more comfortable life. So I thought, no, I'll bring joy and the children, and then I'll do my exam later. After all, I don't really have to do the exam because I have a work visa. So that's how I came 2007, 24th of March 2007. Then October of that year, I brought Joy and Shalom to come to join me. And then the following year, 2008, I did my PLAB 2, which is the final exam, and I passed, as I've always passed, and then started doing working as a doctor. Yeah, so I got here and I started doing a locum work. First job was in Scotland, but as this time I'm like in my Christian faith. I've been, I don't know how many years in the Christian faith. I know how God leads me, mainly by having impression in my heart, and then having the peace of God about it. Something comes to my heart, pray about it, and I get the peace of God about it, and I just go about it. So yeah, I started working in Paisley in Scotland, locum job, and the family were in Sheffield. Joy was looking after the children, and she worked in a care home, and trying to just keep the home front. But the HSMP, for you to get your indefinite stay, you need to be earning £40,000 in a year for you to get indefinite stay. But that was not what they told us. They changed it. What they told us before is after 5 years you just get indefinite stay. So when we got here that they changed it. So I was trying to work very hard to make sure I get the £40,000 so that we don't get sent back to Nigeria. But there's this organization, they call them PABIO, British Association of, I don't know, Palestinian Development. Anyway, they fought, took the case to court, and they won. That those that have been promised that they didn't have to earn a certain amount of money to have their indefinite stay, that rule should not apply. They cannot backdate the rule. It should apply to the new people. So we didn't have to do that. So yes, and basically it was just more of trying to see what God wanted us to do in terms of what, as Christian, we wanted to know what God. We were a bit comfortable, but what is the way ahead? What has God called us to? Any church we join, we know we have to serve God, because we just have to serve God. He'd be so good to us, and Joy, and myself, and Joy. And but in terms of my goal in life, how do we serve people? We realized from just Joy and myself that we've been called because of coming from a very poor background and not having enough, and knowing so many people that don't have, that one of our major calling was to do hospitality, and to educate as many people, and to sponsor many people, and to bless them. So we realized that very quickly on in the marriage. So because back home in Nigeria, we had a lot of people coming to our house to feed, and we helping people and all that. And it was great knowing that we, at some point, were looking for how to feed, and that even at some point actually scavenging food on the streets and all that. So we realized that. So yeah, I was in the bank one day. I was just about to withdraw money, and I don't know what happened. One of the ladies came and said, "Oh, what have you thought about mortgage?" I go, "Mortgage? No, you can have your own house." I think she saw my account. It was 2009. I came to this country 2007. She took me, talked about mortgage, and then they gave me mortgage promise. So bought our first house in 2009, and that's in 2009. Was able to build first house in uh, in Nigeria for my mother-in-law, really, because she was having, because before Joy's father died, she was struggling, and the landlord was taking her to police station. I wasn't happy about it, so I got a loan and built her a house. So she was staying in one flat. So got two houses. So God has blessed us, and we have trained so many people in schools. Because at the moment we're training every year, probably more than 6, 7 people that we pay their university fee. So yes, these are the main two things. Our calling is just to serve God in the church where we can. In the teaching team in this church, not where Michael is, but I'm trying to teach. And but aside from church and serving church and working in church, our main thing is actually to sponsor people and helping many people. It's going to send them to school, to feed them, clothe them. Looking back on my life, I'm 50 years old now, and I'm thinking about the fact that I was from a broken home. I didn't know my mom. My father was an alcoholic. He was an idol worshiper. There was just no food. I was house help, just being thrown from one family to another, be beaten. I mean, now I would say I was abused, all the way through. And there was no way that, and I still said this 2 days ago to my wife and my mother-in-law, because we keep saying this, just giving God glory. There is just no way I would have thought I would be here today, alive physically, because, and then to be a doctor, to be educated, to be in England, and more importantly, to be serving God, and then to be a blessing to people, The fact that, I mean, it's just amazing. So, and the only two way, I know I was speaking to a taxi driver, and he said, "Oh, you did it yourself." And I said, "No, I didn't do this myself." "Yes, but it's God." And like Monday said many years ago, there is a God in heaven. And you just have to know it, because when I became a Christian, and gradually, even as a Jew, I started seeing the difference. My tuition fee for secondary school was paid by a charity organization I never heard of. I didn't have money. Things were being, my money were coming from somewhere. Yeah, I worked hard, but there were a lot of people in my situation, my cousin, that were even better off, that they couldn't continue. They just messed up. And the difference is between me and them is that I stuck to God. I was really serious. And I tell them, I give them money every year. And I tell them this now they have come to know God now. But at that year, when we were teenagers, they were not interested in God. And that was just the difference. So, But it's unbelievable, really. I mean, there are a lot of friends that they use me to preach. They use me to preach. I know pastors' friends, they will call me and say, I use you to preach today. Ruben took me to Lagos once to share my testimony. So it can only be God, because there was no father, there was no mother, there was no auntie, there was nothing. It wasn't because I was very strong and all that. So I just want to really appreciate God, even Joy as well. We started our marriage in a very, it was tough. We had twins, two boys. We lost them after 3-4 days because of the poor health system in Nigeria. We gave birth to them in January. In December that same year, we gave birth to Shalom. So it was all, but in all, it just, it's, there's a verse in the Bible, I think First Samuel 2:8, talks about God taking the poor from the dunghill and setting them with princes. And that is just the verse that describes us, because God has taken us from just a terrible background and just make it very beautiful. And this is what I tell people these days. There are only two things you need in life. It doesn't matter your circumstances, whether you have a father, mother, listen. You only need two things: God and hard work. You hard work without God, but you need God. Just God, and then keep your head down. And God, if you go with God, God can take you to places. So I'm really grateful to God for what He has done, and I just want to return all the glory to Him. And that is my real life story.